In the vast and complex theater of human emotions, anger is one of the most primal and universally recognized performances. Its script is well known, its actors familiar. Most individuals navigate the turbulent waters of fury through one of two well-trodden channels. The first is a volcanic eruption, a loud, visceral, and unmistakable display where the individual makes their displeasure known to all within earshot through raised voices, accusatory language, and dramatic physical gestures. The second is a silent seepage, a covert operation where anger is suppressed only to leak out through passive-aggressive comments, deliberate inefficiency, the punishing silence of the cold shoulder, or a constellation of subtle behaviors designed to make the transgressor's life subtly but significantly more difficult. These conventional displays, whether explosive or implosive, serve as a clear signal flare in social interactions. We are culturally and instinctively programmed to recognize the clenched fist, the sharp tone, the slammed door, or the withdrawn presence as indicators of conflict. This recognition often initiates a process of resolution, an argument, an apology, a negotiation. However, operating outside this well-mapped territory of emotional expression exists a more enigmatic archetype, the Sigma male. His processing and manifestation of anger are so fundamentally different, so counterintuitive to established norms, that they often go entirely unnoticed until the relational landscape has been irrevocably altered. His anger does not resemble anger at all. To the untrained eye, it manifests as a calm indifference, a strategic withdrawal, or sudden, intense preoccupation with other, seemingly more pressing endeavors. This creates a perilous and confusing dynamic where one party believes all is well, basking in the absence of overt conflict, while the Sigma male, having perceived a fundamental breach of trust or respect, has already begun the internal and external process of severance. He is quietly, methodically recalibrating the value and nature of the relationship, decisions that the other person will only comprehend in their consequences, not in their formation. The most paradoxical aspect of this entire process is that the Sigma's anger responses often appear more mature, more controlled, and more rational than typical emotional outbursts. Yet, this very controlled mass of finality that is far more absolute in a damage that is significantly more challenging to repair than the fiery, but often transient, battles that characterize most interpersonal conflict. What follows is a deep dive into the 6 core behavioral strategies a Sigma male employs when genuinely angered, exploring not just the what but the why, the psychological underpinnings and the profound consequences of this unique emotional calculus. 1. The strategic concealment of emotion, mastering the unreadable facade, the internal crucible versus the external calm. Imagine the physiological symphony of rage, a racing heart, adrenaline coursing through the veins, muscles tensing, and hands trembling with a raw, animalistic impulse to react. Now, imagine superimposing over this internal maelstrom a veneer of absolute calm, a steady voice, a neutral facial expression, a body language that betrays nothing of the storm within. This is not the absence of feeling. It is a supreme exertion of will over instinct. For the Sigma male, the experience of anger is a dual-layered reality. On one level, he feels the full, unvarnished intensity of the emotion, the betrayal, the disrespect, the frustration. Yet, simultaneously, a higher cognitive function activates, a coldly rational assessment that concludes, revealing this anger at this moment would be a strategic error of the highest order. This is not the suppression born of fear, like that which might characterize a more conflict-averse individual, nor is it the calculated display of dominance of an alpha. It is a conscious decision to retain the upper hand by remaining an enigma. This practice aligns with a core tenet of the Sigma philosophy, radical independence. The Sigma male understands, perhaps on an intuitive level, that emotional transparency is a form of vulnerability. To show your hand, to reveal what truly bothers you or how deeply a comment is cut, is to hand your opponent a map of your psychological pressure points. In the chess game of social dynamics, he refuses to be a predictable piece. By internalizing the tumult, he deals with the problem on his own terms, in his own time, denying the other party the satisfaction or the data of a visible reaction. The ancient Stoic philosophers, like Seneca in his work on anger, would have recognized this approach, arguing that while the initial feeling of anger might be involuntary, the ascent to it and the subsequent actions are within our control. The Sigma male embodies this principle, treating the initial surge of anger as a data point, not a command. The psychological jujitsu of non-reaction. The deliberate concealment of anger transforms into a potent tactical advantage, particularly when dealing with individuals who thrive on provocation or drama. The modern playground for such interactions is often the corporate meeting, the social gathering, or even the family dinner, where someone might attempt to test boundaries, undermine authority, or elicit an emotional response to paint the Sigma as unstable or volatile. When the Sigma male responds to a blatant provocation with a neutral "I see" or a simple, unblinking stare, he executes a form of psychological jujitsu. The aggressor, expecting a satisfying clash, a raised voice, a defensive retort, is met with a void. Their energy, their intended emotional payload, has nowhere to land. This creates a fascinating role reversal. The person who sought to provoke, now left with their aggression echoing back at them, often begins to look petty, desperate, and emotionally unstable. The Sigma, by contrast, appears completely composed, in control, and by comparison, more mature. This non-reaction is not passive. It is an active and powerful response that communicates disdain more effectively than any shouted insult could. It says, "You and your attempts to manipulate me are beneath my engagement." The Sigma's silence becomes a mirror, forcing the provocateur to see their own unflattering reflection. This is mentally exhausting for the Sigma. The energy required to override the limbic system's fight-or-flight response is immense, but he views it as a necessary expenditure to win the longer game of social positioning and personal integrity. 2. The razor's edge of wit. Sarcasm as a precision instrument. The anatomy of a cutting remark. When emotional pressure becomes too great to be contained entirely within silence, the Sigma male may elect to vent a controlled amount of steam to the calibrated release of sarcasm. This is not the chaotic, emotional yelling of a person who has lost control. It is the opposite, the deployment of wit as a surgical tool. When a Sigma male is profoundly angry, one might not hear a decibel increase in his voice. Instead, one would hear a shift in timbre, a dryness, a delivery so perfectly timed and laced with subtext that it operates on multiple frequencies. To the unobservant, it might sound like a simple, even polite observation. To the target and those with developed emotional intelligence, it lands with the sharp, unmistakable sting of a scalpel. Consider a team member who consistently fails to deliver their part of project, causing delays for everyone. An alpha might confront them directly. "Your laziness is holding us all back." A beta might grumble to others but say nothing to the person. The Sigma male in a meeting might say with a completely deadpan expression, "We're all so impressed with your unique approach to deadline management. It really keeps the rest of us on our toes, never knowing what to expect." The words themselves are not an explicit accusation, but the tone, context, and delivery make the message crystal clear. He is expressing his frustration, holding the individual accountable, and demonstrating intellectual superiority, all while maintaining plausible deniability. As the playwright Oscar Wilde, a master of this art form, noted, sarcasm is indeed the highest form of intelligence in these contexts, requiring a quick mind to craft and a perceptive mind to decode. The social defense and the intelligence filter. The strategic use of sarcasm serves a dual purpose for the angered Sigma. First, it acts as a brilliant social defense mechanism. By responding with clever, cutting wit instead of raw emotion, the Sigma protects his own image. He emerges from exchange looking witty, composed, and intellectually agile, while the target of his sarcasm often appears foolish, slow-witted, or clumsy. The Sigma never has to directly attack the person's character. He simply lays a verbal trap that the person, through their own incompetence or malice, walks right into. Over time, people begin to notice a pattern. Those who antagonize the Sigma male consistently end up on the wrong end of these witty exchanges, their social credibility eroding with each failed engagement. Secondly, and perhaps more profoundly, sarcasm functions as an effective intelligence and compatibility filter. The Sigma male, who values his time and mental energy immensely, has little patience for those who cannot navigate the subtle layers of human communication. If someone fails to grasp the nuanced criticism embedded in his sarcastic remark, they have effectively identified themselves as someone not worth his further investment. They have failed a basic test of social and emotional acuity. Conversely, the individual who catches the meaning, acknowledges it, and perhaps even responds in kind, has demonstrated a level of intelligence and self-awareness that the Sigma respects. In this way, his anger, channeled through sarcasm, becomes a tool for curating his social and professional environment, weeding out the inefficient and the obtuse while rewarding perceptive and the capable. 3. The power of the unspoken, strategic silence as a weapon, the volcanic restraint of the withheld word. In the heat of a conflict, the perfect, devastating retort often flashes into consciousness. A cutting remark, a brutal truth, a piece of information that could eviscerate the other person's argument and ego. For most, the temptation to unleash this verbal weapon is overwhelming. The immediate gratification of putting someone in their place is a powerful lure. The Sigma male, however, exercises Herculean-level restraint. He will physically bite his tongue, clench his jaw, or simply turn and walk away, consciously choosing to absorb the emotional impact rather than release the torrent of words. This is not an act of cowardice or a lack of cleverness. It is a profound understanding of the irreversible nature of language. He recognizes that words spoken in white-hot anger are like arrows loose from a bow. Once released, they can never be taken back. They burrow into memory, create lasting scars, and fundamentally alter the fabric of a relationship. The Sigma male's calculus is long-term. He is willing to endure the short-term discomfort of swallowing his words to avoid the permanent, structural damage they could cause, or to avoid giving away a strategic advantage. This aligns with the wisdom of figures like Mark Twain, who understood the power of measured communication. For the Sigma, in the face of provocation, silence becomes the most eloquent and powerful response. It is a silence that is heavy with meaning, a void that the other person is forced to fill with their own anxieties and projections. The architecture of credibility through selective speech. This forced, deliberate silence is not merely a defensive tactic. It is an investment in future credibility. By consistently refusing to engage in petty squabbles or to litter the air with every thought that enters his head, the Sigma male builds a reputation for substance over noise. People subconsciously learn that when he is quiet, he is observing, processing, and analyzing. Therefore, on the rare occasions when he does choose to speak, his words carry disproportionate weight. The room tends to quiet down. Colleagues and acquaintances listen intently because they know his speech is not a common currency. It is a valued artifact. When someone has been persistently testing his patience, pushing boundaries with the assumption that his silence equates to weakness or ignorance, the Sigma's eventual response is catastrophic to the aggressor's position. It is not an emotional outburst. It is a cold, precise, and thoroughly documented indictment. Because he spent weeks or months in observant silence, his response is backed by a mountain of accumulated evidence, specific instances, patterns of behavior, and direct quotes. The person who thought they were dealing with a pushover suddenly finds themselves facing a prosecutor. The Sigma's words, when they finally come, hit with the force of verdict, not a heated opinion. This moment is often a point of shocking realization for the provocateur, who understands too late that the Sigma's patience was not a void to be filled, but a cage being slowly constructed around them. For the slow-burning fuse, the gradual and inexorable application of consequences, from sudden explosion to gradual erosion, the conventional anger response is often binary and immediate. A transgression occurs and a confrontation follows. The Sigma male operates on a different timeline. His response is not an explosion but a gradual, tectonic shift. Instead of delivering a single dramatic punishment, he becomes an architect of natural consequences. He begins a slow, methodical process of withdrawing the resources he once freely provided. His time, his energy, his intellectual capital, his goodwill, and his presence. The person who angered him may not notice at first. A return text message takes a few hours longer. A request for help is met with a polite but non-committal "I'll see what I can do," followed by radio silence. Invitations to social gatherings subtly cease. The Sigma becomes busy. Each individual action is minor and deniable. If confronted, he can legitimately point to a busy schedule or other commitments. However, the cumulative effect is undeniable. The relationship's temperature drops degree by degree until it reaches a freezing point. The other person eventually wakes up to reality that the dynamic has fundamentally changed. The support system they took for granted has evaporated. This method is a direct application of the Benjamin Franklin principle that prevention is superior to cure. The Sigma male is not interested in curing a broken relationship through a dramatic, emotionally draining confrontation. He is focused on preventing further damage to himself by systematically reallocating his resources away from the source of the problem. The litmus test of character. This gradual withdrawal serves a crucial secondary function. It acts as a flawless litmus test for the other person's character and intentions. The Sigma male, in executing the strategy, is not just administering a consequence. He is gathering critical intelligence. He observes how the person reacts to being deprived of his presence and support. A person of good character, who genuinely values a relationship and may have been unaware of the severity of their offense, will notice the change. They will feel the distance and will likely reach out to inquire, "Is everything okay? I feel like we've been distant lately." This opens a door for potential, though difficult, reconciliation. Conversely, an individual who is primarily using the Sigma for his resources, be it his network, his problem-solving skills, or his emotional support, will reveal their true colors. They will either vanish entirely once the benefits dry up, or they will become angry and entitled, demanding to know why he is no longer at their beck and call. Their reaction confirms the Sigma's initial assessment, that the relationship was transactional and ultimately worthless. In this way, the Sigma's slow burn anger does not just punish, it clarifies. It separates the authentic from the opportunistic, the valuable from the parasitic, allowing him to clean his social house with surgical precision and without the messy drama of a direct confrontation. The cognitive feedback loop, the compulsive mental replay as forensic analysis, the mind as a high-definition crime scene. In the immediate aftermath of perceived slight or betrayal, while another personality type might be venting to friends or plotting revenge, the Sigma male's mind enters a state of intense, internalized forensic analysis. His brain becomes a detective reviewing security footage from every possible angle. He replays the offending conversation, the look on the person's face, their tone of voice, their word choice, and the context surrounding the event. This is not mere rumination, which is often an unproductive cycle of negative thought. This is a purposeful, albeit obsessive, cognitive process aimed at achieving one primary goal: perfect comprehension. The first replay might capture the broad strokes of the disrespect. The second replay might highlight a micro-expression of contempt that was initially missed. The third might cross-reference the timing of the comment with past behaviors, revealing a pattern that was previously invisible. Each mental iteration strips away the initial heat of the emotion, leaving behind the cold, hard data of what actually occurred. He is deconstructing the event to answer fundamental questions. Was this intentional or accidental? Was it an isolated misstep or part of established pattern behavior? What does this action reveal about this person's true character, their values, and their respect for me? The arsenal of perfect recall. This meticulous mental process provides a Sigma male with an unassailable advantage, particularly when dealing with manipulative personalities. Individuals who engage in gaslighting, revisionist history, or habitual lying rely on the fallibility of memory and the fog of emotion to distort the truth. They operate in the hope that their target will doubt their own perception of events. The Sigma male, having subjected the incident to dozens of hours of mental review, is immune to these tactics, while the manipulator is casually twisting the narrative, assuming the Sigma has forgotten the details. The Sigma has been building an ironclad case. When the manipulator attempts to say, "I never said that," or "You're misunderstanding me," the Sigma can respond with terrifying specificity. "You said those exact words at 4:15 p.m. last Tuesday, right after you put your coffee cup down. You were looking at the floor when you said it, and you followed it with a laugh that was clearly nervous, not humorous." This perfect recall, born from the cognitive feedback loop of his anger, completely dismantles the manipulator's tools. Their tricks are rendered useless against someone who possesses a near photographic memory of the transgression. The Sigma's mind, through this painful process, transforms a raw, messy date of anger into a curated, organized, and potent arsenal of truth, making him virtually impervious to emotional manipulation. 6. The empire of the mind. Unusual patience as strategic superiority. enduring discomfort for ultimate advantage. Perhaps the most counterintuitive of all the Sigma's anger responses is his cultivation of an almost superhuman patience. The natural, biological purpose of anger is to prompt immediate action, to fight a threat or flee from it. To feel the surge of anger, and yet consciously decide to wait, is to wage a war against one's own primal neurology. The Sigma male does exactly this. He sits with the discomfort, the sense of injustice, and the burning desire for immediate resolution, and he makes a calculated choice to endure it. He understands that in the complex empires of modern social and professional life, as Winston Churchill alluded to in a different context, the true battles are won in the mind, not through brute emotional force. While an alpha male might demand an immediate meeting to hash things out, and a beta male might hope the problem will magically resolve itself, the Sigma male is playing a deeper, more complex game of strategic timing. He is analyzing the battlefield. He is considering the other person's current stressors, the alignment of external circumstances, and the potential ripple effects of any action he might take. He is willing to be temporarily misunderstood as weak or passive if it means he can choose the moment of his response for maximum effect. This patience is the ultimate expression of his self-control and long-term thinking. The calculated strike and the reversal of perception. This strategic patience allows the Sigma male to respond not when he is most emotional, but when the situation is most advantageous. He waits for the perfect confluence of events, when the other person is already vulnerable, when external evidence has mounted in his favor, or when an audience is present whose opinion matters. The person who angered him, lulled into a false sense of security by his prolonged silence, often drops their guard. They may even become emboldened, increasing their disrespectful behavior, convinced they are dealing with someone who will not fight back. It is at this precise moment that the Sigma male strikes. His response is never an emotional outburst. It is a deliberate, calm, and devastatingly effective action. It might be the presentation of evidence that dismantles a person's project at work, a quiet word with a superior that leads to a reassignment, or a simple, final statement that severs a relationship with absolute finality. The impact is profound because it is so unexpected. The target is caught completely off guard, realizing in a single, shocking moment that the Sigma's silence was not weakness, but the quiet coiling of a spring. The patience they mistook for submission was, in fact, the most potent form of power, the power of perfect timing and unshakable self-possession. In the end, the Sigma male's entire anger paradigm serves to demonstrate that the most formidable forces are not those that make the most noise, but those that move silently, inexorably, and with absolute precision. Do you resonate with the ideas I shared in this video? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you're interested in more content about Sigma males, explore the other videos on this channel. Thanks for watching.